that if they are flexible, since they are in small number, so they can quickly respond towards the market action. How the market actually responds, they can quickly like take an action on that, and then they can satisfy you. So small firms are usually more flexible, and in terms of flexible, we can say they take quick decision in terms of market response, how the market actually responds, and they can quickly take action and they can satisfy consumer want. Now, do you think that this thing actually exists in the large firms? If it's so, bought a pair of shoes from a very well-known brand, and you had some concern that this should be not like this, but like this. You need a little variety in your product. So what happens? You will find some claims for after some time. Like you must have seen there are policies mentioned in the many outlets. They say that in case of any suggestions, complaints, we will comply with all your requests within 15 days or maybe 3 weeks. So that is something which actually delays. Like just imagine if you are in a rush, you have some like you want a product in like 3 days or 2 days, then maybe large firms will not respond. They're not that flexible because they have a chain of command. And that chain of command actually sometimes not make your, they don't respond quickly to your requests. So that's why they are not that flexible. So flexible is another reason that small firms, being a small unit and with having small number of factor of production, they can quickly respond to your request or whatever. Okay. Now, sometimes why you like to be as a small firm? The small firm you like to be in, maybe it's the reason that maybe you are lacking finance. The lack of finance, that's a very important factor. But sometimes if you have a lack of finance, and that lack of finance, you will always try to bring, you are unable to expand your business. So with this lack of finance, but still with some of your abilities, you can still remain small, but you cannot expand your business. So this is one reason for being as small. And why is it so? Maybe sometimes being as small, the technical factor, since it's not required to be in small firms. So you can see all these, there are very small element or reason you can find in these examples that the technical factor is very low. So what happens in this way, they are going to remain small. Okay. Now, sometimes you'd like to remain small, maybe due to the market size. Oh, now, we know that the market sizes can be small, can be medium, it can be a large market. If I start with a small market level, that can be called a local market. And when we talk about a step forward, then it can be a medium. And when we talk about a large one, then it can be a nationwide. So maybe a local one is something which is about addressing all the locality near about you. You can see that this hawker, who is selling vegetables, he will always sell his product to a particular locality, a particular location. Maybe he's just coming to one particular area of the city and he's selling his goods and he's not expanding. Why? Because his product demand is only for that particular area, like a grocer or maybe somebody who's selling goods somewhere around the corner of your colony or your town or the street somewhere. So according to the size of the market, they will remain small. If the market is of local size and they will definitely remain small, just like a tailor. Now you can see that there are tailor shops, maybe in some vicinity or somewhere, but they remain small, like a very small shop. And we can see that why they're, because they only particular that area of people are going to get their goods bought from this tailor. But when we talk about the large one, this market size is little large, that is like a whole nation. So they can sell throughout the nation. So that means the tailor shop is going to have a large market size. So the market size does define that they are going to sell on a small level, or either they will produce on a large. Number 6, sometimes we find cooperation between small firms. The union is strength, and sometimes small firms, they usually combine together just to represent and stay and want to stand stronger before any obstacle or any problem which they could face. So what they do, that they usually cooperate with each other. Like maybe one is supplying some raw material, the other is like giving some transportation. So there are some examples which we can see around here, that the small firms usually they cooperate with each other, but the large firms, they don't. So they have more threats of their competitors, their rivals. So what they happen, that this cooperation can only seen in small firms, and it is their need as well, because since the small firms, they try to remain intact together, that is going to be their strength to survive. So you will see that many small firms, they always try to make a union altogether. Okay, so moving on to another point, which tells us that sometimes the government support. The government will always support the small firms, and that is one main reason that small firms, they do exist and survive, because of the government help. Now, this is one question which usually confuse us, that why not the large firms are supported by the government and why the small firms? If I just give you an example, like if there are two brothers in a family, and one is earning and the other who is not. So the one who is not earning, definitely if he's a minor, and the other who is like a big brother and he's earning. So whom do you think the father help? The one who is earning or the one who is not earning and he's a minor? The answer is correct. It means the one who is not getting some support, he is weak, he is small enough. So the small needs to be supported. So the government, who is always known as playing a motherly role for its country, for its economy, they are always going to support the small firms. And we usually see that the small firms are getting help. Every government, which whenever they come, they try to introduce some scheme of employment in terms of that. And they always encourage small employment. And you can see around you, sometimes like you might have seen, as some governments, they try to introduce the transportation, like there was some examples like President Rozgar, like the president of Pakistan, under his order, he actually ordered that some transportation like rickshaws, green rickshaws were introduced. And there was like a chief minister who introduced a transportation like taxi cabs were introduced by him. So they were all small firms in themselves. Why small firms? Well, they were the factor of production, they were the firms, and they were providing services. So they remain small. Why? Because the government always support such programs which are working on the small scale. Okay, some additional and special precious items. Sometimes some precious items, although they have a huge capital, but they will always try to produce at small scale because the demand of their product is to limit it to some special class. Like if I just take example of like those who are selling gems, jewelries, like antique shops. These are some precious items which you cannot sell on very high scale. And that's why you will always find very small outlets of them who are selling their goods, but they don't have a very large setup which is growing. So some precious items are also in the list which can be. So some of these points which we have highlighted, I think they are more than enough that to explain that why small firms are existing. So summing up today's lesson, dear students, we must keep this in our mind that if a question is set for you, do you think that the small firm do exist? Or let's say, what are the benefits of small firms? Or what are the economies of scale of the producing of the small for the small firms? Then these are some of before you, which you cannot see in the large firms. So that is something which actually helps you to sustain in your life as a small firm. So thank you very much for that. You have a worksheet which I have attached for you today, and you can solve it and submit me back. And see you very soon. Allah Hafiz.